What's up you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jenny and I'm that props girl, and welcome back to part 2 of my little series on every show that I've ever done a props for. Now if you haven't seen part 1, I do recommend that you go back and watch that before you watch this one. It's not really an essential, but it'll make everything else make a bit more sense because I'm diving straight back in. So if you are excited and enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up because it lets me know you do want to see more content like this, as well as consider hitting that subscribe button and bell so that you don't miss a single one of my uploads. And with all that said and done, let's jump straight into this video. Little disclaimer, I apologize for the banging in the background. There is a building being built next door to the apartment block that I live in, and there's not really much I can do about that one. All right, so we are diving into 2019. So this is obviously still pre-pandemic, and this year I did 2 shows. I worked on a production of Strictly Ballroom, and that was in the theatre that I work in, and that was in June of that year. Strictly Ballroom is an absolutely huge show. It really is a very interesting show to do. Because it's based off of the Baz Luhrmann film. However, when you translate something from film to stage, there are a few differences. So when you're in a film, you obviously film all your scenes and you crop them all together in the editing room. And so you can go from outside to inside to outside to inside and a dance studio and here and there, and it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. On stage, however, if you want to be chopping and changing between scenes, it actually makes it quite difficult. And unfortunately for this show, that's exactly what happened. So we would go from being in a dance studio one moment to being outside the dance studio, but then being over in another house, and then back to the dance studio, and then to the Pan Pacifics, and like it was just jumping all over the place. And my partner recently said something that was very true, and said that show really would benefit from having a revolve that you could actually like turn and have a completely different set on, or you know, a split stage type thing like that. Unfortunately, you know, that also comes with a high budget. For this show, the company that I worked with chose to hire their set, which was a very good choice because, as I said, there's just a lot that goes into this show, because this show has a lot of grandeur in the fact that it requires a little bit of a bigger set, and it also needs a huge budget when it comes to costumes and wigs. I think ballroom dancing is one of those things that like you can't actually get wrong, and also shoes. Like it's very, very specific. So we had a lot of our costumes that were hired, and that was a really great choice. We hired them from Clock, which is I think a Melbourne-based company, and it was like they were really great. The quality was really good as well. We also hired the set from them too. The problem that you have with hiring set is the fact that you get what you get basically, and this is sort of the same for costumes, but I find with set, because often they're just stored in shipping containers and that sort of thing, and they will not usually unpack them production to production. So they could hire it out to a production company and it just goes back into storage until it needs to be hired again. And the likelihood that they unpack the container is lower. They may, and I may just be talking out of my butt right now, but if from my understanding, this is a general thing. And so if something is broken and not reported, you may not find out until you get it on a stage. And that's what happened to us. There was actually a big hole in the top of one of our set pieces, and it was just one of those things that we're like, well, we just can't do anything about it. In hindsight, I feel like we could have potentially done something to fix it, but I think we were on a time crunch with this production because it like in general it was very big, and I think like Baz Luhrmann shows are always over the top, and Strictly Ballroom is never an exception to that rule. It's a very fun show. It's obviously an Australian show, so it's got that sort of Australiana feel to it, and it is in general a very fun show to do, but it moves very, very quickly. It's also a very beautiful show, but it's got, you know, it's still got all those quirky Baz Luhrmann like little things in it. If you haven't seen the show, watch the movie. It's a very good movie to stage comparison because it is very, very similar. And there are a lot of songs from the movie in the production as well. So I did enjoy this production. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. It was the first show that I officially assistant stage managed for, because there weren't that many props and I just offered, and I absolutely loved it. I had a blast. Later that year in August, I did a production of Beauty and the Beast. So in 2014, if you saw my last video, you would know that I did the junior production, and then this was a great way to segue and do a full-scale production. This was another great show. I had a lot of fun making the rose. So I teamed up with my dad on that one, and so he did all of the mechanics for it and like making the petals drop and that sort of thing, and we used an electromagnet for that. So he bought an electromagnet online and did all the wiring underneath, and we built it into the table that it was placed on, and then he made it remote controllable as well. So what I did is basically take the original body that he had made and made it look like a rose. I think he actually wrapped the stem in floral tape or green electrical tape, but I basically bought rose petals and took apart like just a fake rose and used the leaves from that, and I got the top of a stocking, basically cut that off into make like a sock, and then created the heads of the rose, and we had 3 different heads that went on as the show went on. So we had one that was the full size, one that was medium size, and it had space where you could slot in the petals, and they all had a little bit of metal on the bottom of them. Like I think it was just maybe like a piece of like a paper clip or something like that, or staples even. I can't remember exactly what I used. I'd have to look at them. And then when you would click the bottom, they would fall out, and it worked really well. There were obviously a lot of other props within the production that had to happen as well. I said this in a video, I cannot for the life of me remember what video, but I said that I wanted to do a video on villager props, and I 100% will. I'm so sorry I haven't got to it yet, but Beauty and the Beast is one of those shows that has villages, and like the ensemble usually all require things to do in the village during those things, and it's like it can get a bit tiresome just going, you get a basket and you get a basket and you have a book and you can have a loaf of bread. So I think it's a difficult job sometimes as a props person to actually come up with things for people to have, but that's part of the fun of the production. It was a good production. I definitely, you know, if I did it again, I wouldn't change the rose design. There are a few things that I would change. I learned a lot on that production. It was again a production I did not do with the school, and but it was still a major musical. It also ran for a really long time. I think we had a 2-week season. But yeah, it was a good production in its own right, but you know, putting in the rose and all that sort of stuff came with its own challenges, and you know, when you add something that's technologically advanced, you have to add in time in your preset time to, you know, check that it's working. And I think there was one show where it was very, very hot and overheating because I think I had forgotten to turn it off between shows. It was a double show day, so I was up there like trying to cool it down on the tower, waiting for the scene to like up until the last possible second that I could be up there, but it's fine, it all worked. So yay, we only had one show where it failed, and I think that was opening night. Anyways, but that was operator error. That was my fault. That's fine. Dad fixed it, so yay. Moving into 2020, the year of the pandemic. So I had a lot of shows lined up at the start of this year. I think I maybe had 13 shows lined up, and I was meant to be stage managing a production. I was also assistant stage managing a production, which I ended up doing in 2021. And yeah, there were a lot of shows that I was very heavily involved in, and I was also considering going to work in Sydney as well. There was just a lot on the cards, but you know, the pandemic happened, and this honestly happened about 2 days before, I think, or a day before the production of Chess was bumping into the theatre, like, and we went into lockdown, and it was absolutely tragic. Like, I was so depressed. for so long. And I think so many people within the entertainment industry are not okay, and we're still rattled and shell-shocked, and so many people left the industry because of this, which is really, really tragic. And the industry has 100% changed since the pandemic. But that's not what we're talking about. So basically, we all know the story. We went into lockdown. So in July 2020, I did a production of Seussical Kids, which was meant to be in April. So this was again with the school. It was a very tiny production. It had a very limited cast. And if you watched my previous video where I talked about Annie Kids, I went through the difference between a junior show and a kids show, so I'm not going to go through it again. But it was a really cutesy little show. There were very minimal props, but once again, I assistant stage managed that show and it was super fun. This was another show that we hired for, and this particular set needed a little bit of love. So I got to do scenic artistry, and that was really just touching up the set. But it was really, really fun, and I spent a lot of time repainting the set and just making it look a bit better and like zhuzhing it up a little bit. And it was really, really fun, especially because, you know, we'd been in lockdown for so many months, and then to finally be able to do theatre, it was a really big deal. After that, we went into another mini lockdown. So we got our show in and then went, okay, bye. And then after that, I think in October, I think it was late October going into November, that year, I did Aladdin Jr. And I did some videos in 2020 on Aladdin Jr. I will link a few of them down below and up above. It was a really fun show to do. I have never worked on a production of Aladdin, and I think it was also like the fact that, you know, these kids have been rehearsing this show since February, and like it was such a long haul to actually get there. But once we actually got on the stage, it was so much fun. I honestly, though, I don't know how we did it, because we only had a week in the venue. We bumped in on a Monday. We opened Tuesday night. We teched it with, I think it was 160 kids. We teched it, and like this was a big set too. It was massive. We had these two like huge set pieces, and then there was this bridge that was flown down and like actually like landed on the two set pieces. So it was really important that the set was in the right place. Not that it's not important normally, but it was like really crucial at this point. Aladdin was absolutely huge in terms of the set and everything that we just had for this show. It was a lot of fun to set dress, but I had so much set dressing to do for this show, and because we were so short on our tech time, I was like set dressing in the dark, and like while they were plotting lighting, and I was in there so early in the morning. I stayed till so late at night. I was really lucky that it was so close to Christmas, because I got a lot of stuff that was gold for the cave because everything at Christmas is gold. So it was a very happy coincidence there. Another great thing that happened in 2020 was I started this channel, and I touched on that in my previous video. So once again, I won't go on about that, but once again, thank you for all of your support, and I've loved seeing how my channel has grown and changed over the last few years. Okay, so moving into 2021, I did chess in, I think it was March, maybe late Feb. I feel like it was March, so like this time 2 years ago, and it was amazing. This was a totally different theatre company, and it had professionals in the cast, and it was such a fun time. Again, we were really short on tech time for it, and it was one of those shows that, you know, you get to it and just go, I don't know how we pulled that off, but we did, and it was so great. It was really nice to work with a different theatre company as well, because every theatre company does things differently. We had a mass choir, and I ended up having to take over props. So I was originally just supposed to be assistant stage managing, and then I had to, as I said, take over props, which was a big deal within itself. There weren't too many props in this show, but the ones that were, there were very important. Obviously a chessboard, and there are a few other things as well. But in general, this was a really, really great production. Chess is one of those shows, though, I feel not that many people know it, or if they do, they know it because like Benny and Bjorn from ABBA wrote it, and there's like a few like ABBA-isms within the music itself, but the music doesn't really stop much through it. Like, you've really got to pay attention to the plot. I describe it as basically it's kind of based on like the Cold War, and it's referred to like the Cold War between like America and Russia, basically told through chess, like the game of chess. So if you watch the Queen's Gambit, like you kind of get a little bit of an idea of the game of chess, and it might make more sense. I think I really only learned about what it was about like when the show was running, because I came into the production really late, you know, like the week of production. I basically had to learn the show and where everything went, and it was absolutely crazy. So much fun. We had a chaise lounge which broke during the show run. It actually broke during interval, and it broke in rehearsals and we'd fixed it, and then broke again in interval. I think it was maybe the opening show, and it was like maybe 5 minutes before interval ended, and we had to go find another couch. We ended up getting another lounge from another place in the building, and it worked just fine, but it was so crazy. But I look back on those things now, and you know, you just go, oh, it was crazy in the moment, but oh my gosh, you have to laugh about it, and you just go, wow, we pulled it off. After chess in 2021, I had High School Musical, and once again I did a lot of videos on this on my channel. Notably, probably the biggest one that I did was the one where I made all the cheerleading pom-poms, and so there were a lot of cheerleaders, and obviously they need 2 pom-poms, and I ended up making them just because we ended up making their uniforms, and I couldn't find any that had all of the colors that we were using, because we didn't just want red or white, we wanted red, white, black, silver. So I ended up making them. I think if I made them again, I might make some changes. I think the design is good in principle, but there's just a few things that I would want to change, but only minor things. So if you do watch that video, like, it would still work. Obviously, if you're working with kids, nothing is childproof or actor-proof, so there's just a few things like that. But in general, it worked pretty well. That was such a great production. It was very nostalgic because, again, like when I did High School Musical Junior in 2012, it was nostalgic because I grew up with the movie and I absolutely love that show. It was also really fun because we didn't hire anything for that production, and we've been hiring so much, and so it was really lovely to be designing again from scratch, and I absolutely loved. We did this beautiful scene with like the rooftop garden, and I loved designing like the greenhouse and all these little plants and things. And there was actually a video that I filmed, and I've never ever posted it. Leave me a comment if you want me to post it. And it was a cake. It was a fake cake that I made for this production, and I made this cake, which was the one that Zeke is supposed to be holding when it goes onto Sharpay. It's meant to have a shaving cream on it. So like as the cream, and it goes all over her top. I never ended up posting it. I don't know why, but I didn't. It's a really good video if you need a cake like that. So as I said, leave me a comment down below. This show unfortunately had quite a tragic end because once again, COVID strikes and we ended up being shut down before our final show. So we were meant to do 6 performances, we only ended up doing 5, and it was very devastating, more so because we were so close to the end, but also it's really hard when kids hurt. And yeah, this show it's very special, it's also very sad, and I have so many mixed emotions because it was a really fun show that I loved so much. This is just future Jen jumping in from editing. I realized that I completely forgot and left out a major show, and you guys were all there for the journey. In 2021, I did Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and this show was phenomenal. It was so much fun. I was part of the bus crew, so I was moving the bus around. I also did all of the props for that, and I have got quite a few videos on this channel which I have already discussed, you know, preparing for this show and all of the amazing fun that it was. But it was a spectacular production, and it's another great Australian show, and it was a heck of a lot of fun. I'm so sorry that I left it out. I don't know why, just slipped my mind, but it was a major part of 2021, and it is a show I'm particularly proud of. In 2022, I did props for a production of Aladdin Wonderland Jr. Now, I wasn't actually part of this production in terms of being physically in the venue, but I was contracted to make props for it, which I ended up giving over to the company who was doing it. And I did a video on my Alice in Wonderland props last year, and so I'll link that one as well. They were a bit of fun to make. I also made a really cool purple Victorian cake, and I absolutely love that cake. It's one of my favorites I've ever made. I think I used that in another production maybe at some point, but yeah, it was super fun. After that, I did a production of Keeping Up Appearances, and this is the first show that I ever officially stage managed. I also designed the set for this show. I did a video on stage managing last year as well, and this was a lot of fun. It was one of those shows that you know when you know a show is like cringily average, but it's meant to be? Like, this production was not meant to be perfect. It was meant to be like very try-hardy, and that's what made it fun. And you didn't take it seriously. And I mean, like, we worked a lot. We worked very hard, and we had like cast members with COVID all the way through. Like, I myself had COVID, and like overcoming that and having people learning other people's lines and all sorts of stuff was just a part of the process, and that is now just something that we have to deal with. But on the whole, it was a fun production to work on. It was a play, so again, a little bit different from all of these musicals that I worked in. And then in June of 2022, I did Frozen Jr, and I did so many videos last year on that. I never made a video on making the quilts, because I handmade quilts for the beds for Anna and Elsa, but I did do a video on set dressing the beds, so if you do want to have a look at that video, I'll link it. And that was such a fun production to work on. We had this massive LED screen, and I mean, it was huge, which made the production sort of come to life. So there were like, so all the pieces of set were very like tokenistic. So we had our maypole, and we had obviously the beds with the trunks, but everything else was kind of like the LED screen did majority of the work there. So that was really fun, and it was again, it was a junior production, and so you're doing it mostly for the kids, but it was a really beautiful production, and it was nice to not have a production that was impacted by COVID. So yay. But if you do want to see any of my videos about Frozen, they are available on my channel. And finally, for last year, I did Little Mermaid. So I did a video on this as well, although I never posted my video. I think I may have filmed one, I'm not quite sure, on how I made the jellyfish. And I noticed this is my last video when I spoke about Little Mermaid Jr, because I put up a picture of the jellyfish and then went, I don't even think I have done a video on that. So if you do want to see how I made the giant jellyfish, let me know, because it was tedious. I love how they turned out, but yeah, there's a lot of things I'd love to say about those. And if you watch my video either from Aladdin or Little Mermaid, where I made the feathered fans, thank you so much. They were a lot of fun to make. I have no idea what I'm going to do with them all now, but I have them. Little Mermaid is such a fun show to do, but at the same time, like, it was very crowded in the wings because we had like big set pieces, but you know, we're dealing with like mermaid tails and like sea urchins and all these things, like, and the costuming is quite large in that show, so you've got to be really careful with like props and costumes and like set all being in the wings at once. So if you're in a bigger theater, it's probably beneficial for that show. But yeah, that's it. That's all the shows I've done props for so far. And coming up this year, I have got Cinderella, and I have got a production of Matilda Jr. And yeah, I'm really excited for those. I haven't started working on Cinderella yet. I'm still waiting to get a props list, but once I do, I'm going to do a video on getting my props list and what happens next and all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned if you want to see that journey. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you learnt something. Be sure to give this video a like if you did enjoy it, and leave me a comment with your thoughts, and consider hitting that subscribe button and bell so that you don't miss a single one of my uploads, and it helps me to grow on the platform as well. I will see you guys next time. Bye.